Well, thank you for joining us. My name is Kent Hovind. I taught high school science for 15 years, and now I travel and speak on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs primarily, but I also am interested in lots of other topics. One topic that has interested me, being raised in a home of my dad who did a lot of building. He was an electrical engineer, and then we were always doing building projects. One thing I've been interested in most of my life is nails. I want to talk to you about nails here today. This is a chapel message that I've shared many times at different high schools, and ought to be something that will influence your life if you'll let it. I remember as a child, my dad said, son, I got some friends that work at Keystone Steel and Wire Company in Bartonville, Illinois, right across the river from where we lived, and they would like to let us come over and take a tour. I said, oh, sure, Dad. We went over and toured the steel company. They would take this massive block of steel, probably about the size of one of these 8-foot tables. It was like 2 feet by 2 feet by 8 feet long. Weighed lots and lots and lots of weight. But they took this thing and they heated it up in an oven until it was cherry red hot. And they ran it down this conveyor belt between two rollers, like the old-fashioned washing machine rollers, you know, to squeeze the clothes out. It went between these rollers and squished it down. When it squeezed this big block of steel down, it made it longer. Lots longer. Then it went down the conveyor some more, came to 2 more rollers and squeezed the sides. And it made it much longer. Every time they squeezed this thing on the top or on the sides, it kept getting longer and longer and longer, till it ended up as a wire probably a mile long, just by squeezing this block of steel. Ended up getting to the end, it gets on this machine that coils it up on a big, huge spool, and they clip it off and take it over to the next factory, or to the next building. We walked over in the next building, and I said, what do they do here? He said, this is where we make nails. They feed this wire into this machine, starts pulling it off of this spool, goes around a bunch of wheels and does whatever it does, and ends up at this nail making machine. It would feed the wire in, chop it off, smash the head on, smash the point on the nail, smash grippers on the side. We'll talk about that in a minute. These little lines, these serrations, those are special grippers on there. It would smash those in, smash the head, smash the point, and fling it out into a box. And it would fill an entire box of nails about every 6 seconds. It was much faster than a machine gun coming out of there as the nails came flying out into the box. I was yea verily impressed as a little kid at how they make the nails. Got to actually watch the factory where they made these things. We're going to talk about some different kinds of nails here today. The Bible really has a lot to say about nails. Jesus grew up in a carpenter's home. They said in Matthew chapter 13, is not this the carpenter's son? Grew up in the home of a carpenter. First one to find this verse, if you'd stand and read it. Mark chapter 6, verse number 3. Mark 6:3. Who's got that verse? That was a tie, so the boys win. Okay? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary? They're talking about Jesus, of course. And it mentions his brothers and sisters, you know, here. So Jesus himself was considered a carpenter. Okay, first one to find this verse, if you would stand and read it. Mark chapter 6 and verse 4. Mark 6:4. Boys again, there we go. Keep going. Jesus was without honor, of course, in his own country, in his own house. They didn't recognize who he really was. He was the God of the universe, but he was raised in the home of a carpenter, and he himself was considered a carpenter. Interesting. The Bible says because of this, he was not recognized there. He could do no mighty work there. He didn't do much in his own town. They just wouldn't listen to him. In the book of Judges, there's an interesting story. In Judges chapter 4, in the Old Testament, you got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, and Judges. Judges chapter 4. Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent and went softly unto him and smote the nail into his temples. That's the side of his head. She nailed this guy to the ground. What a way to die. He was a bad guy, and he was running from the battle, and he came to her tent and said, oh, help, would you please rescue me? And she gave him some milk and said, here, drink this and take it, rest. You've been running a lot. So he drank the milk, fell sound asleep. While he's asleep, she takes this big old tent nail, sneaks over there, puts it next to his temple, gets the hammer, and bam, pounded his head all the way to the ground. Nailed him. Literally, right? The Bible has quite a bit to say about nails. First one to find this verse, if you would stand and read it. 1 Chronicles 22:3. 1 Chronicles 22:3. There we go. 1 Chronicles 22:3. And David prepared iron in abundance for the nails. You know, I taught earth science for 15 years. I've done a lot of digging in the dirt looking for things, finding lots of fossils and things like that. Nobody has ever gone out digging in the dirt and found a seam of iron ore, and as they dig into the iron ore, they find out it's not really just all iron there, it's actually made in nails. Nails are never found, unless they've already been made by somebody else. But nature doesn't make any nails. Nails have to be prepared. And one of the things you have to realize that if God's going to use you in any way, He's going to have to prepare you. There'll be things you have to do. The nail, in order to become a nail, has to be found in the ground, has to be extracted, has to be melted down, has to be shaped, has to be formed, has to be hardened to be ready to be a nail. And God's going to have to prepare you. Nails don't just happen, they are prepared. Interesting thought to consider. You need to say, God, would you please prepare me? Someday, you're going to be the mom, or the dad, or the grandma, or the grandpa, or the boss. Are you getting prepared? You need to let God prepare you. Philippians chapter 1 says, He which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. If you just let God work in you, He will do something great with your life. But you have to allow Him to prepare you in some way. First one to find this verse, if you would stand and read it, Isaiah 41:7. Boys are ahead 3-0. Isaiah 41:7.
So the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith, and he that smootheth the hammer, him that smote an anvil, saying, It is ready for the soldering. And he fastened it with nails, and it should not be moved.
There we go. Isaiah 41:7 says, He fastened it with nails. Why did He fasten it with nails? So it wouldn't move, right? That's why you nail anything down, so it doesn't move. One important quality nails have, or should have, the carpenter decides where they go, and then their job is to not move. Just stay there. Don't move. And God may put you someplace in life, whether you want to be there or not, I guess doesn't matter. God decides where you're going to go, and your job is don't move. Stay there. You might say, it's uncomfortable here. I don't like it here. Oh, well, okay. You stay where God puts you. He'll take care of that kind of stuff. First one to find this verse, if you would stand and read it. Boys are ahead, 5-0 now? No, 3-1. Jeremiah 10, verse 4. Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse number 4. They fasten it with nails and hammers that it move not. We'll call that one a tie, so it's 4-2. All right. We're not prejudiced here, we're just always right. Fasten it with nails that it won't move. Nails, number one, have to be prepared. And if God's going to use you in any way, He's got to prepare you. He's going to have to do some working on you. Secondly, and same with me. Secondly, nails are expected to do their job. Put them there and hope they stay. What would happen if all the nails in the room, that are in this room right now, quit? They just all decided, hey, let's get out of here. We're leaving. I'm quitting. Aren't you glad they're all doing their job? I bet there are some nails up in this ceiling right here that are probably under a lot of strain. They've been under a lot of strain all their life, haven't they? Pressure's on them constantly. But they don't quit, do they? And you're probably going to go someplace in life where there's going to be pressure on you. You just